Welcome to another episode of the 365 birthday Born on This Day series ASMR because I'm soft-spoken and don't feel like being a talking head quite yet. We are on February 19th, the day of the Explorer. It was still snowing as of that day, so I just felt like adding some nice snow at the beginning and end of this episode, even though as of February 24th, when I'm recording this voiceover, it feels like spring outside, so it's kind of crazy the way the weather is unfolding. And this episode's also interesting because it was on a Friday, and later that evening I smashed my face going sledding. You know, it's the kind of thing where you have to just put it all on the line. Don't hold back anything. You know, embrace life. And here's today's title sequence. Once again, we are reading from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Jules Steffers and Gary Goldschneider. This book is a work of personology. A day is a year, is a lifetime, is an age. Personology combines history, psychology, numerology, tarot, and astrology to form a personality guide for each person based on their day of birth. As I've said before, I plan to make an episode for each day of the year following the grand life cycle. And since I was already behind today, I wanted to go a little more into it. As you could see in the diagram, there are objective and subjective sides to the circle. And it's symbolic of the human life cycle in general, the seasons of life, waxing and waning. There are 4 quadrants corresponding to the 4 seasons. The manifestation is often unconscious. I said that backwards. I read it backwards. See, I don't even know what I'm talking about. But it's all just a fun way to embrace wherever you are in your life and wherever you find yourself, and to constantly reorient yourself with the day as it unfolds for you. Anyway, let's begin. The tough and determined individuals born on February 19th must fearlessly explore their environment and ultimately follow their inquisitive instincts to far-off worlds. Most born on this day generally overcome their childhood sensitivities early and develop quickly into solid individuals capable of handling the stresses of everyday life. Although they can show an interest in mystical realms, February 19th people are usually practical enough to keep their feet on the ground and simply observe. Their more fanciful side can manifest in a love of travel, adventure, and romance. The crucial point here is the challenge of pursuing goals which are distant and difficult to attain. February 19th people like to break new ground with their efforts. Giving their own personal stamp to ideas and activities appeals to them greatly. Their drive toward success is quite healthy and vital. They must, however, beware of growing insensitive or callous from years of overcoming resistance or knocking down barriers. Preserving their inner sensitivity is crucial and indeed possible, but only when they allow it into their profession, making it part of what they do and who they are. Those born on this day who believe that their work life and personal life are somehow two unrelated and distinct entities with no bearing on each other may be deluding themselves. Although February 19th people do best on their own, they also make good team players, and a good measure of their success is due to their perceptiveness and awareness of those who are working with them, particularly in the area of sizing up strengths and weaknesses and recognizing potential. February 19th people often have marked leadership abilities, though they rarely decide to be in charge. Others generally respect them for their talents and see them as steady, reliable, and stable. However, on February 19th, people feel the impulse to move or make a major change. They must be free to follow their instincts. Those who follow them must be prepared for anything. Those born on February 19th are generally not the most nurturing of people. One way to develop this side of their character is to spend time with children, not necessarily their own. In addition, social activities of all kinds can keep them in touch with the concerns and needs of others. Ultimately, however, February 19th people need to go off and do their own thing. Most often their goals are not those of society at all, but pertain to self-development and matters of honor. When these impulsive, spontaneous people hear the call, they cannot but follow it. Because they are so often driven to be reckless, they must avoid self-destructive activities. Although we are all prone to be our own worst enemy from time to time, those born on this day are more prone than most. In their weakness, those born on this day are rash, hardened, and uncontrolled. In their strength, those born on this day are daring, imaginative, and forceful. Numbers and planets. Those born on the 19th of the month are ruled by the number 1. 1 plus 9 equals 10. 1 plus 0 equals 1. And by the sun. Those ruled by the number 1 like to be first and tend to be ambitious and dislike restraint. Because February 19th people are born on the Aquarius-Pisces cusp, they are also ruled by both Uranus and Neptune. Consequently, they are interested in telepathic, mystical, or religious phenomena. The planets. Astrology traditionally speaks of 10 principal heavenly bodies, which can be viewed from the Earth: the 2 luminaries, Sun and Moon, 3 inner planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, and 5 outer planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. All of these, including Sun and Moon, are called planets, and each represents a different facet of the human personality. The names of the planets largely derive from classical Greek and Roman mythology, and their symbolism from the gods and goddesses which they represent. Every planet serves as an astrological indicator as well as a heavenly body. In this book, the rulership of both astrological signs and numbers by planets gives important clues to the personality of those born on each day. The sun is the giver of life to our solar system. Thus it represents tremendous creative force and generative power. Masculine in orientation, the sun represents the outward drive of the human ego, striving toward unique individual expression, ruling the sign of Leo and the number 1. The sun conveys the force of its central position within the solar system. Sun-influenced people, both men and women, tend to be forthright, demanding, and able to transmit much-needed energy to others. Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius and the number 4. This planet was discovered around the time of the French Revolution, and so symbolizes strongly individualistic and at times rebellious energies. The movements of the planet Uranus are erratic, and the quality of not doing things in a straight-line fashion and releasing spontaneous and impulsive energies are characteristic of Uranian people. The 84-year solar orbit of Uranus is taken in this book to be the ideal lifespan of humans in the Aquarian age. Neptune was the king of the sea in classical mythology, and his trident is symbolized in the glyph of this watery planet. Neptunian people can be profound, dreamy, diffuse, and difficult to pin down. Fantasy-rich, the minds of Pisces and those ruled by the number 7 often are attracted to highly imaginative objects. Neptunian energies invariably exert an irresistibly magnetic influence, able to dissolve away barriers of a more rigid and absolute nature. And since those ruled by this day, since those born on this day are ruled by the sun, I thought I would read one of my favorite mythological stories involving the sun. Phaethon. Long ago, when the world was very new, 2 boys were racing along the edge of a cliff that hung over a deep blue sea. They were the same size. One boy had black hair, the other had yellow hair. The race was very close. Then the yellow-haired one spurted ahead and won the race. The loser was very angry. "You think you're pretty good," he said, "but you're not so much. My father is Zeus." "My father is Apollo," said the yellow-haired boy, whose name was Phaethon. "My father is the chief god, king of the mountain, lord of the sky. My father is the lord of the sun. My father is called the Thunderer. When he is angry, the sky grows black and the sun hides. His spear is a lightning bolt. That's what he kills people with. He hurls it 1,000 miles and never misses. Without my father, there would be no day. It would always be night. Each morning he hitches up his horses and drives the golden chariot of the sun across the sky, and that is daytime. Then he dives into the ocean stream and boards a golden ferry boat and sails back to his eastern palace. That time is called night." "Sometimes I visit my father," said Epaphus. I need to look up his name. I think it's Epaphus. The other boy. "I sit on Olympus with him, and he teaches me things and gives me presents. Know what he gave me last time? A little thunderbolt, just like his. And he taught me how to throw it. I killed 3 vultures, scared a fishing boat, started a forest fire. Next time I go, I'll throw it at more things. Do you visit your father?" Phaethon never had, but he could not bear to tell Epaphus. "Certainly," he said. "Very often I go to the Eastern Palace, and he teaches me things too." "What kind of things? Has he taught you to drive the horses of the sun?" "Oh, yes. He taught me to handle their reins, and how to make them go, and how to make them stop. And they're huge horses, tall as this mountain. They breathe fire." "I think you're making it all up," said Epaphus. "I can tell. I don't even believe there's a sun chariot. There's the sun. Look at it. It's not a chariot." "Oh, what you see is just one of the wheels," said Phaethon. "There's another wheel on the other side." The body of the chariot is slung between them. That is where the driver stands and whips his horses. You cannot see it because your eyes are too small, and the glare is too bright. Well, said Epaphus, maybe it is a chariot, but I still don't believe your father lets you drive it. In fact, I don't believe you've been to the palace of the sun. I doubt that Apollo would know you if he saw you. Maybe he isn't even your father. People like to say they're descended from the gods, of course. But how many of us are there, really? I'll prove it to you, cried Phaethon, stamping his foot. I'll go to the palace of the sun right now and hold my father to his promise. I'll show you. What promise? He said I was getting to be so good at charioteer. That next time he would let me drive the sun chariot alone, all by myself, from dawn to night, right across the sky. And this time is next time. Your words are cheap, said Epaphus. How will I know it's you driving the sun? I won't even be able to see you from down here. You'll know me, said Phaethon. When I pass the village, I will come down close and drive in circles around your roof. You'll see me all right. Farewell. Are you starting now? Now, at once. Just watch the sky tomorrow, son of Zeus. And he went off. He was so stung by the words of his friend, and the boasting and the lying he had been forced to do, that he traveled night and day, not stopping for food or rest, guiding himself by the morning star and the evening star, heading always east. Nor did he know the way, for indeed he had never once seen his father Apollo. He knew him only through his mother's stories, but he did know that the palace must lie in the east, because that is where he saw the sun start each morning. He walked on and on, until finally he lost his way completely, and weakened by hunger and exhaustion, fell swooning in a great meadow by the edge of a wood. Now while Phaethon was making his journey, Apollo sat in his great throne room on a huge throne made of gold and rubies. This was the quiet hour before the dawn, when night left its last coolness upon the earth, and it was then at this hour that Apollo sat on his throne, wearing a purple cloak embroidered with the golden signs of the zodiac. On his head was a crown given him by the dawn goddess, made of silver and pearls. A bird flew in the window and perched on his shoulder and spoke to him. This bird had sky blue feathers, golden beak, golden claws, and golden eyes. It was one of Apollo's sunhawks. It was this bird's job to fly here and there, gathering gossip. Sometimes she was called the spy bird. Now she said, Apollo, I have seen your son. Which son? Phaethon. He's coming to see you, but he has lost his way and lies exhausted at the edge of the wood. The wolves will surely eat him. Do you care? I will have to see him before I know whether I care. You had better get back to him before the wolves do. Bring him here in comfort. Round up some of your companions and bring him here as befits the son of a god. The sunhawk seized the softly glowing rug at the foot of the throne and flew away with it. She summoned 3 of her companions, and they each took a corner of the rug. They flew over a desert and a mountain and a wood, and came to the field where Phaethon lay. They flew down among the howling of wolves, among burning eyes set in a circle about the unconscious boy. They pushed him onto the rug, and each took a corner in her beak and flew away. Phaethon felt himself being lifted into the air. The cold wind of his going revived him, and he sat up. People saw a boy sitting with folded arms on a carpet rushing through the cold, bright moonlight far above their heads. It was too dark, though, to see the birds, and that is why we hear tales of flying carpets even to this day. Phaethon was not particularly surprised to find himself in the air. The last thing he remembered was lying down on the grass. Now he knew he was dreaming. A good dream, floating and flying, his favorite kind. And when he saw the great cloud castle on top of the mountain, all made of snow, rose in the early light, he was even more sure than ever that he was dreaming. He saw sentries in the flashing golden armor, carrying golden spears. In the courtyard he saw enormous woolly dogs, with fleece like cloud drift, guarding the gate. These were Apollo's great sun hounds. Over the wall the carpet flew, over the courtyard, through the tall portals. And it wasn't until the sunhawks gently let down the carpet in front of the throne that he began to think that this dream might be very real. He raised his eyes shyly and saw a tall figure sitting on the throne, taller than any man, and appallingly beautiful to the boy, with his golden hair and stormy blue eyes and strong laughing face. Phaethon fell on his knees. "Father," he cried, "I am Phaethon, your son." "Rise, Phaethon, let me look at you." He stood up, his legs trembling. "Yes, you may well be my son. I seem to see a resemblance. Which one did you say?" "Phaethon." "Oh, Clymene's boy. I remember your mother well. How is she?" "In health, sire. And did I not leave some daughters with her as well? Yellow-haired girls, quite pretty." "My sisters, sire, the Heliads." "Yes, of course. Must get over that way and visit them all one of these seasons. And you, lad, what brings you to me? Do you not know that it is courteous to await an invitation before visiting a god, even if he is in the family?" "I know, father, but I had no choice. I was taunted by a son of Zeus, Epaphus, and I would have flung him over the cliff and myself after him if I had not resolved to make my lies come true." "Well, you're my son, all right. Proud, rash, accepting no affront, refusing no adventure. I know the breed. Speak up, then. What is it you wish? I will do anything in my power to help you." "Anything, father. Anything I can. I swear by the river Styx, an oath sacred to the gods. I wish to drive the sun across the sky, all by myself, from dawn till night." "Impossible," he cried. "No one drives those horses but me. They are tall as mountains. Their breath is fire. They are stronger than the tides, stronger than the wind. It is all that I can do to hold them in check. How can your puny grip restrain them? They will race away with the chariot, scorching the poor earth to a cinder." "You promised, father." "Yes, I promised, foolish lad, and that promise is a death warrant, a poor charred cinder floating in space. Well, that is what the oracle predicted for the earth, but I did not know it would be so soon. So soon." "It is almost dawn, father. Should we not saddle the horses?" "Will you not withdraw your request? Allow me to preserve my honor without destroying the earth. Ask me anything else, and I will grant it. Do not ask me this." "I have asked, sire, and you have promised, and the hour for dawn comes, and the horses are unharnessed. The sun will rise late today, confusing the wise." "They will be more than confused when this day is done," said Apollo. "Come." Apollo took Phaethon to the stable of the sun, and there the boy saw the giant fire-white horses being harnessed to the golden chariot. Huge they were, fire-white with golden manes and golden hooves and hot yellow eyes. When they neighed, the trumpet call of it across the sky, and their breath was flame. They were being harnessed by a titan, a cousin of the gods, tall as a tree, dressed in asbestos armor, with helmet of tinted crystal against the glare. The sun chariot was an open shell of gold. Each wheel was the flat, round disk of the sun as it is seen in the sky. And Phaethon looked very tiny as he stood in the chariot. The reins were thick as bridge cables, much too large for him to hold. So Apollo tied them around his waist, and then Apollo stood at the head of the team, gentling the horses, speaking softly to them, calling them by name: Peiroes, Eos, Aethon, Phlegon. Good lads, good horses, go easy today, my swift ones. Go at a slow trot, and do not leave the path. You have a new driver today. The great horses dropped their heads to his shoulder and whinnied softly, for they loved him. Phaethon saw the flame of their breath play about his head, saw Apollo's face shining out of the flame, but he was not harmed, for he was a god, and could not be hurt by physical things. He came to Phaethon and said, "Listen to me, son. You are about to start a terrible journey. Now by the obedience you owe me as a son, by the faith you owe a god, by my oath that cannot be broken, and your pride that will not bend, I put this rule upon you. Keep the middle way. Too high, and the earth will freeze. Too low, and it will burn. Keep the middle way. Give the horses their heads. They know the path. The blue middle course of day. Drive them not too high nor too low, but above all, do not stop. Or you will fire the air about you where you stand, charring the earth and blistering the sky. Do you heed me?" I do, cried Phaethon. "Stand away, sire. The dawn grows old, and day must begin. Go, horses, go." And Apollo stood watching as the horses of the sun went into a swinging trot, pulling behind them the golden chariot, climbing the first eastern steep of the sky. At first, things went well. The great steeds trotted easily along their path, across the high blue meadow of the sky, and Phaethon thought to himself, "I can't understand why my father was making such a fuss. This is easy, for me anyway. Perhaps I'm a natural-born coachman, though." He looked over the edge of the chariot. He saw tiny houses down below and specks of trees, and the dark blue puddle of the sea. The coach was trundling across the sky. The great sun wheels were turning, casting light, warming and brightening the earth, chasing all the shadows of night. Just imagine, Phaethon thought, how many people now are looking up at the sky, praising the sun, hoping the weather stays fair. How many people are watching me. Then he thought, but I am too small to see. They can't even see the coach or the horses, only the great wheel. We are too far, and the light is too bright. For all they know, it is Apollo making his usual run. How can they know it's me? How will my mother know, and my sisters? They would be so proud. And Epaphus, above all, Epaphus. How will he know? I'll come home tomorrow after this glorious journey, and tell him what I did, and he will laugh at me, and tell me I'm lying, as he did before. And how shall I prove it to him? No, this must not be. I must show him that it is I driving the chariot of the sun. I alone. Apollo said not to come too close to earth, but how will he know? And I won't stay too long. Just dip down toward our own village and circle his roof 3 times, which is the signal we agreed upon. After he recognizes me, I'll whip up the horses and resume the path of the day." He jerked on the reins, pulling the horses' heads down. They whinnied angrily, tossing their heads. He jerked the reins again. "Down," he cried. "Down, down." The horses plunged through the bright air, golden hooves twinkling, golden manes flying, dragging the great glittering chariot after them in a long flaming swoop. When they reached his village, he was horrified to see the roofs bursting into fire, the trees burned. People rushed about screaming, their loose clothing caught fire, and they burned like torches as they ran. Was it his village? He could not tell because of the smoke. Had he destroyed his own home, burned his mother and sisters? He threw himself backward in the chariot, pulling at the reins with all his might, shouting, "Up! Up!" And the horses, made furious by the smoke, reared on their hind legs in the air, then leaped upward, galloping through the smoke, pulling the chariot up, up. Swiftly the earth fell away beneath them. The village was just a smudge of smoke. Again he saw the pencil stroke of mountains, the ink blot of seas. "Whoa," he cried. "Turn now, forward on your path." But he could no longer handle them. They were galloping, not trotting. They had taken the bit in their teeth. They did not turn toward the path of the day across the meadow of the sky, but galloped up, up, and the people on earth saw the sun shooting away until it was no larger than a star. Darkness came, and cold. The earth froze hard. Rivers froze and oceans. Boats were caught fast in the ice in every sea. It snowed in the jungle. Marble buildings cracked. It was impossible for anyone to speak. Breath froze on the speaker's lips. And in village and city, in the field and in the wood, people died of the cold, and the bodies piled up where they fell, like firewood. Still Phaethon could not hold his horses, and still they galloped upward, dragging light and warmth away from the earth. Finally they went so high that the air was too thin to breathe. Phaethon saw the flame of their breath, which had been red and yellow, burn blue in the thin air. He himself was gasping for breath. He felt the marrow of his bones freezing. Now the horses, wild with change, maddened by the feeble hand on the reins, swung around and dived toward the earth again. Now all the ice melted, making great floods. Villages were swept away by a solid wall of water. Trees were uprooted, and the whole forests were torn away. The fields were covered by water. Lower swooped the horses, and lower yet. Now the water began to stream, great billowing clouds of steam as the water boiled. Dead fish floated on the surface. Naiads moaned in dry riverbeds. Phaethon could not see. The steam was too thick. He had unbound the reins from his waist, or they would have cut him in two. He had no control over the horses at all. They galloped upward again, out of the steam, taking at last the middle road, but racing wildly, using all of their tremendous speed, circling the earth in a matter of minutes, smashing across the sky from horizon to horizon, making the day flash on and off like a child playing with a lamp. And the people who were left alive were bewildered by the light and darkness following each other so swiftly. Up high on Olympus, the gods in their cool garden heard a clamor of grief from below. Zeus looked upon earth. He saw the runaway horses of the sun and the hurtling chariot. He saw the dead and the dying, the burning forests, the floods, the weird frost. Then he looked again at the chariot and saw that it was not Apollo driving, but someone he did not know. He stood up, drew back his arm, and hurled a thunderbolt. It stabbed through the air, striking Phaethon, killing him instantly. knocking him out of the chariot. His body, flaming, fell like a star, and the horses of the sun, knowing themselves driverless, galloped homeward toward their stables at the eastern edge of the sky. Phaethon's yellow-haired sisters grieved for the beautiful boy. They could not stop weeping. They stood upon the bank of the river where he had fallen until Apollo, unable to comfort them, changed them into poplar trees. Here they still stand on the shore of the river, weeping tears of amber sap. And since that day, no one has been allowed to drive the chariot of the sun, except the sun god himself. But there are still traces of Phaethon's ride. The ends of the earth are still covered with ice caps. Mountains still rumble, trying to spit out the fire started in their bellies by the diving sun. Tarot, the 19th card of the major arcana, the Sun, can be considered as the most favorable of all the major arcana cards. It symbolizes knowledge, vitality, and good fortune, and promises esteem and reward. This card posits attributes of clarity, harmony, and relationship, and fine reputation. It does, however, also indicate negative qualities of pride, vanity, and pretentiousness. The major arcana. Far more significant are the 22 cards known as the major arcana, which cannot be associated with the modern playing card deck. They are in all probability a concentrated version of Hermetic philosophy, as later interpreted in the Kabbalah, alchemy, magic, and astrology. They comprise a psychological study of man and his relationship to the world of the spirit and to the physical world. Their symbolism is a type of shorthand for metaphysics and mysticism. Here are truths of so subtle and divine an order that to express them baldly in human language would be a sacrilege. Only esoteric symbolism can reveal them to the inner spirit of the seeker. The major arcana are numbered from 0 to 21, each bearing a title which to some degree describes the card. Each card represents a distinct principle, law, power, or element of nature. The designs on the cards also illuminate the life of man, his sorrows and joys, hopes and despairs. They further indicate his search for the wisdom which enables him to control his passions and to help in his transition to higher spheres where he enters into things of the spirit. Any book on the occult will be more readily comprehended. Any of these 22 cards of the major arcana can be the foundation for a great deal of meditation and inner enlightenment. In addition to this, be convinced that there is some power present when the cards are read that directs their distribution. An extra physical power now demonstrated in our universities as psychokinetic effect cooperates with the unconscious muscular activities of the person using the deck and tends to affect the cards as they are shuffled and cut, so that when dealt they fall into positions that have significance in relation to the subject to the reading. The Fool, card number 0, can in a sense be compared to the Joker in the modern deck of cards, and then in that it has no assigned place in the deck, but stands more or less alone. Some writers on the tarot, in order to carry out their own interpretation, place the Fool between the 20th and the 21st cards, but there is no concrete evidence that this card belongs in that position, or for that matter, as the first card of the major arcana. Rather, this is a separate card, a third part of the deck, the sum total of all. The Fool is the sum total of all. The keys. The sun. A naked child mounted on a white horse holds a banner aloft. The child rides without saddle or bridle because he represents perfect balance and control between the self-conscious and the unconscious. He seems to have emerged from the walled garden behind him into the glorious sunlight. 4 sunflowers corresponding to the 4 kingdoms of nature, mineral, vegetable, animal, and human, are turned toward the child, signifying that all creation turns to man for its final development. Creativeness, life forever renewed, nature, the mother of all growth and life. Divinatory meaning, attainment and material happiness, good marriage and happy reunions, achievements in art, science, and agriculture, studies completed, liberation, pleasure in the simple life. Reversed, future plans clouded, possible broken engagement, loss of a valued object unless vigilance is exerted, voided contract. Tarot cards have been used for centuries to predict the future, shed light on the past, and reveal the mysterious patterns of character and destiny. Look into the fire and ask yourself what you want to see, and the answer is also in your asking. Winter. Zodiac position is 0 degree Capricorn to 0 degree Aries in the constellations. It represents the 4th quadrant of the grand life cycle, which, even though I was being sarcastic earlier, we will dive into what the grand life cycle is. This is the 4th and last quadrant of that. The cusp, or it's the equivalent human age of ages 63 to ages 84. Cusp concepts of winter are prophecy, mystery, and imagination, and sensitivity. The signs are Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces, whose rulers are Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Symbols of the goat, the water bearer, the fish. Elements of winter are earth, air, and water. Mottos of winter are I master, I universalize, I believe. The dominant faculty of winter is thought. The winter solstice usually occurs on December 21st in the northern hemisphere. This date marks the beginning of winter in the northern hemisphere, but in the southern hemisphere, winter begins around June 21st. At this time of stillness, nights are longer and days are shorter than at any other time of the year. As winter advances through the bitter days and on to the hint of spring, the nights grow shorter and the days longer. Winter is the 4th and last quarter, or 90-degree segment of the yearly cycle, which I said earlier. This season extends from the winter solstice to the spring equinox. Winter is traditionally the period at which water in ponds freeze and rivers freeze, snow falls, the sounds of nature are muted, and the land lies sleeping under a wet blanket. Trees stretch their bare arms into a gray sky, only lit a few hours a day by a low rising sun. Although much of nature seems dead, this is only a surface view. Deep within the earth, powerful forces are engaged in a metamorphosis, the results of which will be evident to the eye in spring. Nothing really dies, but is transformed into another state. There is a feeling of waiting and of expectation. Life has moved inside and underground. Warmth is sought in caves and in houses from bitter howling winds. Fire keeps humans warm, and foods that have been stored for winter are eaten by both people and animals. Winter comprises 3 astrological signs: the cardinal earth sign, Capricorn, the fixed air sign, Aquarius, which is where we are now, and the mutable water sign, Pisces. These 3 signs can be likened in human terms to the life of the individual aged 63 to 84. This spiritual period of development from middle age to death evidences many of the same aspects of stillness, interiorization of experience, and a quieting of instinctual demands that characterize nature's winter. This 4th quadrant of the grand life cycle is governed by the faculty of thought and can be seen as a waxing period which manifests subjectively and has conscious orientation. Although subjective, underground interior activity has completely replaced outward growth, and in both nature and the human being, objective changes are on the way. In the case of humans, consciousness may have become less concerned with the externals and more with the worlds of thought, religion, philosophy, spirituality, and other universal concerns. Astrologically, this is related to the fact that the signs Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces are ruled by the heavenly bodies of Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, which are all heavy, outer planets. These bodies are big and far from the Earth, taking approximately 28, 84, and 165 years, respectively, to make their way around the zodiac. So it takes us 1 year, it takes Saturn 28, it takes us 1 year, it takes Uranus 84, it takes us 1 year, it takes Neptune 165 years. The outlook of the adult is at this time more universal. Such concerns as competing in the marketplace, raising a family, reproducing, building powerful exterior, and striving to make a mark in the world of society are generally diminishing or even completely absent now. The elder must prepare psychologically for the coming of the end of a life cycle. Health. Those born on February 19th tend to be accident-prone and must be careful of injuries to their legs, feet, and toes. This is funny because later on this day I smashed my face, but my legs, feet, and toes were okay. They also may have various circulatory troubles. Sufficient fluid intake is key to their health, and a regular consumption of at least a quart of fresh water per day is recommended. Because of their penchant for physical activity, they generally get plenty of exercise, and this only needs to be channeled properly to ensure their continued vigor and good health. As far as diet is concerned, those born on this day are usually free-spirited and tend to eat what they want when they please. It is suggested, however, that they focus more on nutrition, making certain they are getting the necessary vitamins and minerals, as well as being careful not to consume an overabundance of meat. February 19th, people must make a conscious effort to get enough rest, particularly at times of stress. Advice: cultivate patience and learn to observe without doing. Trying hard is not always the best way. Sometimes let things come to you without pursuing them. Be open to varying experience. Meditation. It has been said that discretion is the better part of valor. In their weakness, those born on this day are often rash, hardened, or even uncontrolled. In their strength, those born on this day are daring, imaginative, forceful, and that's it. And that's also it for this episode. Made it this far. Thank you for watching. Consider liking this video, subscribing if you want to see more of this daily ASMR series. Try to post it a new birthday each day, 365 birthdays a year. Have a nice day. See you later.